August 23, 2016, was meant to be a day of joy for Victoria Martens, a 10-year-old girl celebrating her birthday in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Instead, it became a day etched in infamy, a day where innocence was violently torn away in an apartment that was supposed to be a haven. Victoria was not just any child. She was a little girl with dreams, a student at Petroglyph Elementary, known for her bright smile and laughter. On this fateful day, her mother, Michelle Martens, had planned a celebration. But the gathering at their apartment turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. The perpetrators were those closest to Victoria. Her mother, Michelle Martens, her mother's boyfriend, Fabian Gonzalez, and Gonzalez's cousin, Jessica Kelly. The narrative of the crime began to unfold with a chilling discovery. Victoria was found dead in her own home. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and then, in a macabre act, her body was dismembered. The brutality of this act was not just in the violence, but in the betrayal by those she trusted most. Initially, Michelle Martens claimed that she had given her daughter methamphetamine, a narrative that painted an even darker picture of a mother's involvement. However, forensic evidence would later contradict this, revealing no methamphetamine in Victoria's system but traces of alcohol, suggesting a different, yet equally disturbing, scenario. The apartment, which should have been a place of safety, became the crime scene where Victoria's birthday celebration transformed into her final moments. The details of how she was found, her body parts scattered, the violence inflicted, spoke of a crime not just against a child but against the very essence of humanity. This wasn't just a murder, it was the destruction of innocence by hands that should have nurtured it. Victoria was not only taken from this world, she was betrayed in the most profound way by her own mother, who, despite not being physically present during the murder, was part of the chain of events leading to this tragedy. The crime scene told a story of horror, of a child whose last moments were spent in terror, surrounded by those who should have loved her. The investigation would later reveal layers of deceit, misdirection, and a complex web of culpability. But in these initial moments, what lay bare was the stark reality of a child's life ended in the most brutal fashion, her birthday forever remembered not for joy, but for unspeakable sorrow. In the aftermath of Victoria Martens' tragic death, the details that emerged painted a picture of brutality so severe, it challenged the very essence of human morality. Inside that apartment in Albuquerque, the acts committed against Victoria were not just crimes, they were violations of the sanctity of childhood. The assault on Victoria was carried out by Fabian Gonzalez and Jessica Kelly, individuals who had entered her life through her mother's relationship. They took advantage of a child in a space meant for safety, a birthday celebration turned into a nightmare. Victoria was sexually assaulted, her innocence desecrated by those who should have had no place in her life beyond casual acquaintance. The initial narrative was further complicated by Michelle Martens' false confession. She claimed to have participated in the crime, a confession that would later unravel as a desperate attempt to shield herself or others from the full brunt of the law. However, Michelle was not at home when the murder occurred. This grim twist only added layers of deception to an already complex case. The post-mortem examination of Victoria Martens revealed that she suffered sexual abuse and was killed by manual strangulation, a method that speaks to the personal, intimate nature of the violence inflicted upon her. After her life was taken, her body was dismembered, an act that seemed to go beyond murder, into a realm of depravity few could fathom. This was not just about ending a life. It was about destroying any trace of the person Victoria once was. The brutality of this act, the sheer violation of a child's body, was something that would haunt all who learned of it. The investigation, driven by the grim discovery, eventually revealed the falsehood of Michelle's confession. Forensic evidence, the silent witness to the truth, contradicted her claims. There was no methamphetamine in Victoria's system, only alcohol, altering the initial understanding of the events. But more significantly, DNA evidence began to peel back the layers of this crime, revealing an additional, unidentified male's DNA at the scene. This discovery suggested that there might have been another, unknown participant in this heinous act, complicating the narrative of who was truly responsible for Victoria's death. The emotional weight of this crime falls heavily on the innocence of Victoria Martens. She was a child of laughter and light, known by her teachers and friends at Petroglyph Elementary for her joyful spirit. Her interactions at school, the simple, everyday moments of a child's life, stand in stark contrast to the brutality she faced. She was a girl who loved to dance, to play, to learn, her life filled with the potential and wonder of youth. The betrayal by her mother, Michelle Martens, adds a dimension of sorrow that is almost unbearable to contemplate. A mother's love is supposed to be unconditional, a protective shield against the world's darkness. Yet, here was a mother whose actions, or inactions, led to her child's demise. The psychological impact on those who followed this case was profound, as it forced a confrontation with the darkest possible betrayal, a parent's failure to protect their child, to be complicit in their harm. For viewers, the emotional and psychological toll of understanding this crime lies in the shattering of trust. How can one trust in the sanctity of family, in the safety of home, when such horrors are possible? Victoria's story is not just one of loss. It's a cautionary tale about the depths to which human behavior can sink, about the fragility of innocence in the face of evil. This case, with its layers of deception, its brutal acts, and the profound betrayal at its core, resonates with a deep, unsettling truth about human nature. It serves as a reminder of the need for vigilance, for justice, and for remembering Victoria Martens, not just as a victim of a horrendous crime, but as a child whose life was filled with potential, cut short by those who should have cherished her. The horror that unfolded within the walls of Victoria Martens' home was brought to light in the most unexpected of manners. It began with a 911 call, a plea for help regarding a domestic dispute. Responding to this call, police officers entered an apartment in Albuquerque, not prepared for the grim discovery that awaited them. There, in what should have been a sanctuary, they found Victoria's dismembered remains, a sight that would haunt all who bore witness to it. The immediate aftermath of this discovery led to the arrests of Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzalez, and Jessica Kelly. The initial narrative of the crime was shaped by Michelle's confession, a confession that painted a picture of her direct involvement in her daughter's death. She claimed to have drugged Victoria with methamphetamine, a detail that would later be proven false, adding a layer of complexity to an already convoluted case. As the investigation deepened, the narrative began to shift. DNA evidence emerged as a critical tool in unraveling the truth. It was through this scientific evidence that the falsehood of Michelle's confession was exposed. There was no methamphetamine in Victoria's system, only alcohol, which contradicted Michelle's narrative. Furthermore, the DNA found at the crime scene did not match Michelle or Fabian. Instead, it pointed to an unknown male, suggesting another person's involvement in the murder. Cell phone data played a pivotal role in reconstructing the timeline of events. It showed that neither Michelle nor Fabian was at the apartment when Victoria was killed, further discrediting Michelle's initial confession. This data, combined with witness statements, painted a different picture of that night, one where Michelle and Fabian were not present during the critical moments of Victoria's death. The evidence collected was damning in its own right. It revealed not just the crime but the layers of deceit surrounding it. The initial narrative, based on Michelle's false confession, was a facade that crumbled under scrutiny. Instead of clarifying the events, her confession had muddied the waters, leading investigators on a chase for the truth. The arrest of Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica was swift, but the charges against them would evolve as the investigation progressed. Jessica Kelly, who had been directly involved in the assault, faced charges reflecting her actions. Michelle Martens, despite her false confession, was charged with crimes related to her involvement in the events leading up to the murder, not the act itself. Fabian Gonzalez, initially thought to be at the center of the crime, was implicated in the aftermath but not in the murder itself due to his absence at the time. This case was a stark reminder of how initial perceptions can be misleading, how confessions can be used to manipulate or shield, and how the pursuit of truth in criminal investigations is often a path fraught with twists and turns. The revelation of an unknown male's DNA opened the case to further scrutiny, suggesting that the full story of Victoria's last moments might still be untold, with justice for her yet to be fully realized. In the quiet aftermath of this discovery, the focus shifted from the immediate horror to the painstaking work of piecing together the truth, highlighting the complexities of human behavior, the fallibility of confessions, and the relentless pursuit of justice in the face of unimaginable tragedy. As the courtroom doors opened to the case of Victoria Martens, the public awaited justice for a crime that had shocked the conscience of many. The trial, with its layers of deception and betrayal, was not just a legal proceeding but a journey into the heart of human morality. Michelle Martens stood before the court, her initial confession of being directly involved in her daughter's murder now disproven. She pleaded guilty, but to a charge of child abuse resulting in death, not murder. This plea was a reflection of her deceit, her attempt to manipulate the narrative in the immediate aftermath of the crime. Her sentence was 12 years in prison, a punishment that, while significant, left many questioning the adequacy of justice for such a profound betrayal. Michelle's involvement was not in the act of murder, but in creating an environment where such horror could unfold, her negligence or complicity in the events leading to Victoria's death undeniable. Fabian Gonzalez, Michelle's boyfriend, was also brought to justice, but the charges against him did not include murder. He was convicted of child abuse with reckless disregard, reflecting his role in the crime's aftermath, but not his presence at the time of Victoria's death. The evidence, particularly cell phone data, confirmed he was not at the apartment during the murder. Still, his part in the sequence of events that led to Victoria's demise was clear. His sentence was 37.5 years, a reflection of the severity of his actions, though not the most severe punishment given. Jessica Kelly, Gonzalez's cousin, faced her own reckoning. She pleaded no contest to charges including reckless child abuse resulting in death. She was sentenced to 50 years in prison, with 6 years suspended, effectively serving 44 years. After her release, she will be on probation for 5 years. Jessica's direct involvement in the assault on Victoria was undeniable, her actions a clear violation of human decency, marking her as a significant figure in this tragic narrative. Yet, with these sentences, the story did not end. The trial and its outcomes were overshadowed by the haunting presence of the fourth suspect, an unknown male whose DNA was found on Victoria's body. This discovery opened a new chapter in this case, one filled with questions rather than answers. While Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica faced their punishments, the identity of this fourth individual remained a mystery, suggesting that the full truth of Victoria's last moments might still be elusive. The case, therefore, remains open, a reminder of the ongoing quest for justice and closure for Victoria Martens. The trial of these individuals was not just about legal accountability, but about confronting the darkest aspects of human behavior. Each sentence pronounced was a somber acknowledgment of the loss of innocence, of a life taken too soon, and of the complex web of culpability. The court's decisions were meant to reflect society's condemnation of the acts committed, yet they also underscored the limitations of justice when faced with such profound betrayal and violence. In the quiet of the courtroom, as sentences were handed down, there was a palpable sense of mourning for what could have been, for a child's life that was supposed to be filled with joy, cut short by those who should have loved her. The legal outcome, while providing a form of justice, could never return Victoria, nor could it erase the pain of her loss. The case of Victoria Martens serves as a stark reminder of the need for vigilance, for justice, and for remembering the victims of such heinous acts, ensuring their stories compel change and bring about a reckoning with our own humanity. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more stories that seek truth amidst tragedy. Like, share, and comment to keep the conversation going. Together, let's honor the victims by never forgetting their stories.